Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna kind of put, you know what I mean, the light, so you're in the light. All right. It's your friend, Rao Cornelio, and I'm here with a new friend, actual grad student. What was your name?
Priscilla Ortiz.
It is like a sad day in Sharon, Pennsylvania, and in America. And I'm sitting here. We were sitting in the media commons, and I was checking my Facebook as usual, and I seen a comment, R.I.P, from a mutual friend, Bobby Ann, about an unfortunate victim of violence once again, and I just want to touch on it just lightly, you know what I mean. And I asked my friend here, Priscilla, just give her just open opinions about just things that happen in America that tend to be like senseless acts of what I mean, like violence or just any kind of injustice, abuse, or anything. It also is up here at Penn State Abuse Month, so a lot of people are doing things to spark awareness. But where I'm from in Sharon, PA, there is a string of awareness or people trying to stay aware. But I feel like this interview would help, shed light on a few things and hopefully be of comfort to the family and friends of the victim, Rachel. Good night. So I'm just gonna read this article a little bit, and if that's okay with you.
Sure.
And just ask you a few questions if that's all right. And before I get into it, just so that people have more of a scope of the kind of the individual that's going to give their opinion on it, because they don't know you in Sharon, so you know what I mean. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Sure. I'm a grad student. I'm looking at I study communication, and I have worked in the healthcare field previously in pediatric oncology, and so I have been around situations with people who are grieving because their children have been unexpectedly diagnosed with terminal illness, and so I've seen that sort of experience also growing up in the Philadelphia area. I have had friends who have been victims of different kinds of violence, gang violence, and different issues that plague the urban areas in our country.
Now, I know, like, briefly before we started the film rolling here, you had a brief chance to just kind of like skim over the article, and a few moments ago in the media comments, I had a chance to kind of overlook it myself. I didn't go into all of the nooks and crannies of it, but enough to just leave me kind of like, I mean, not even really kind of, would be a misusage of my wordage, but I feel deeply moved, and I'm saddened, and my condolences again go to the family of Rachel's mom and her friends who knew her better than I did. I briefly had a chance to conversate with Rachel before on Facebook, and we talked on the phone last year spring semester while I was up here, but I never actually got to meet her in person. But as I read the first couple of sentences, and I'm about to just go on and just read a little bit to you for those out there who haven't had a chance to read the article and maybe seeing this for the first time. It's just I'm just gonna go into it and read. This is the Sharon Herald, and it's the April 4th. Yeah, it's today's paper, and so not too late, but it says, "Mother's worst fear confirmed," and that usually does strike a nerve with people. You know what I mean? Like, as a guy, you know what I mean. I don't know if you can identify with if you have any brothers or male friends, but when something like that, a mother. Anyone hears of a mother suffering or her worst, even her fear, let alone her worst fear confirmed, that usually makes you want to read further and kind of prepares you for like, you know, the blow that's about to be dealt. So as we read on it, you know, it speaks, and this article was written, or, you know, yeah, by Joy, I don't know how to pronounce, how would you pronounce that? Laker? Yeah, the Herald staff writer, and pretty much goes on to say that, you know, a coroner confirmed Friday what Deanne, which apparently is her mother, Goodnight, feared when she walked through the woods in Columbia, South Carolina, looking for her missing daughter. Rachel Goodnight was murdered, and, you know, it's sad to even read on like that, kind of like, you know, completely. And I don't know if you're like a religious person or like, but I have to say that, you know, fucked my head up, you know, like seeing somebody that I like last year when I just was coming up to school trying to escape the traps that those of you, if you're in Sharon, PA, you know what kind of stuff happens, you know what I mean? Like people are, you know, dying senseless murders. So, you know, it inspired me to read on, so I'm gonna go. She said, this is what Miss Goodnight said Friday morning. She says, it was sick, the feeling. I knew Miss Goodnight. You wanna help me read? I can't read that well.
It says, it was sick, the feeling. I knew. So I guess that means that Mrs. Goodnight knew, like she felt an intuition
something was wrong,
that her daughter had been killed.
Yeah, and just, you know, briefly, I'm not gonna read too much more, but you know, literally, I had to keep drying my eyes. I'm anticipating the tears, but you know, it's sad. But the coroner's office said in a news release that Rachel Marie Goodnight, 24 years old, died from complications of a closed head injury due to trauma. Columbia police now consider the case a homicide. As of Friday afternoon, they had named no suspects and filed no charges, though the man Miss Goodnight believes killed her daughter already is in a South Carolina jail, held on charges related to the slaying of a homeless man April 1st. So, you know, it goes on, and you know, you can read it. This is the Sharon Herald, it's today's paper. You can go on google.com and read it, and it just goes on to, you know, describe, and these are things that, you know, I didn't even know, you know, about Rachel, you know, how she grew up and what kind of a person she was, which I believe she's a very good person, and you know, it just, you know, it's senseless. So, but the point that I wanted to stress is that even through all of this, you know, that her mother believes that the suspect could be a possible person, but according to what the police say somewhere in here, that they still don't have any leads. And you know, it just, you know, it makes me kind of, you know, like question into, like, you know, the thought process of people whenever like you see like signs, or like a guy, he said the man 42 years old who her mother suspects, I guess the guy's name is Lawrence Stevens. I have no idea who that man is, but it says he's a man with a lengthy criminal history in South Carolina. You know, apparently, you know, it was something that, you know, maybe the victim, Rachel, overlooked, or you know, just, you know, didn't really consider to the point of, you know, being on full guard. But like with something like that, you know, coming from like a mother's standpoint, or even the police or anybody who's looking into this, like if you see a guy with a lengthy criminal history, or, you know what I mean, you know, like how can, you know, there still be no leads, even though this case may still be early. I'm still finding this out. This is where the conversation begins, where I feel like I needed a second opinion. Where does it be, you know, from your experience, like how would you begin to like even like just go with like begin to process something like this when something like this hits home? Like,
well, I mean, first of all, it seems that your shock is a reflection of what mostly everybody else is probably also feeling. Who might have known Rachel, or who might have gone to school with you, or who might live in Sharon, or, you know, because when it's someone local that you feel like you know, or at least that you feel like you're close to, then, or that you could be close to, then it kind of becomes more personal than some complete unknown, right? So you're speaking from having known her. And that kind of shock
can shake someone.
It can really, and also then after the shock maybe subsides, there are different stages of grief, and I do not claim to know really much about that area, but I understand that there are different stages of grief, and so that there are, as one goes through the grieving process, and the article points to the fact that her mom said that she did not start to feel her grief yet, because clearly she's in shock, having had this discovery. Even if you have some intuition that you might know something's wrong, taking in the idea and really living with it and accepting the fact that it has happened takes a while.
The acceptance.
So that's one of the stages. Surely anger and denial are other stages, and also then I think that in a sense, I heard you wanting to try to point out that maybe something that goes on to the future stages for people who are really grieving. What you can do about these kinds of situations, or how your grief can be transformed into some kind of action, or some kind of action that as an individual you can take, or that you can spur on to have other people join you in that action as a community, and in terms of warning people or helping people understand something that has come out of that situation.
And from that, I just would like to confirm the fact that I can definitely relate to a lot of the points that you just touched on. And I just wanted just go from like what you said about acceptance as a starting point, and like anyone who like even myself, it's like just coming up here to school, like beginning like starting fresh in a new environment, whether you're starting in a relationship with one person, or a new set of friends, or just a new environment in general. It takes a lot, you know what I'm saying? For someone like me, like I come from a household where unfortunately I was not victim, but what is it called, a witness, when you witness, you know what I mean? Like I've been exposed, is what I'm looking for, to abuse growing up. And unfortunately in my case, it didn't really help. Like I didn't really get the kind of help that I needed until like, after I unfortunately became in the system. I myself, I'm not in the system now, but like I was on probation for like a disorderly conduct, charge, in which, I like was making, lewd comments to, females, being a young man, you know what I mean? And this is what I'm really trying to stress, is that problems need to be processed in a way that, you know what I mean, if it's not fully processed out, of your system to the point where you not only heal, but you develop habits that can reinforce, your further, your behaviors, so that it's not a repeating pattern.
Right.
And it's like, so, fortunately, it wasn't something that, like got me into like, I didn't serve time, but it's something that I had to accept myself, that, like, wow, in that quick of a second, you can go from becoming the victim to the person that, how do they say, is a victim to the
offender.
To the offender, yeah. You know what I mean? You could go from being somebody that's the abused to being abuser. And it's just like up here, in college, at a university, I feel it's touched on, but I don't feel that it's gone, into with the kind of compassion that would process it further in not only in the individual's life and consciousness, but the psyche of the entire community. You know what I mean? Because those type of events, it gets into the psyche of a whole community, as you can see from this past year at Penn State, from all the things that's gone on, and et cetera, et cetera. But now we're dealing, you know, with the person who may not even have, I didn't even read, like, you know, I didn't really know the you know, Rachel, the victim, very well, as far as besides like maybe a conversation or two on the phone. You know, I had my own, I'm in school, trying to focus on my life. I got to know her a little bit. We had our conversations and we went our separate way. But now we're dealing with somebody who may not have, you know, been exposed to the level of abuse that I was, or has, you know, lived the type of lifestyle that I have lived. But yet and still, unfortunately, at 24, she's no longer with us. So in this case, like, you know what I mean, like, how would a person, you know what I mean, like, how would you tell, like, from a person like who could be like capable of doing something? And I'm not saying I haven't even formed my opinion whether, you know, who her mother, you know, allegedly, you know, suspects of doing it. That's neither. It's not really like, I'm not in a position to make that type of educated, you know, opinion. But how would a person of you know, try educated, you know, standpoint, you know, a friend or a family member, when another friend comes to you, or you know, somebody, a family member says that, you know, this is a new friend of mine, and that I want to bring to the house, or that I'm going to be interacting with. When, you know, how's this prevented, you know, without, what I'm saying, without like kind of like misjudging, you know what I mean? How is it accurately? How do we accurately, like, you know, keep people on guard and prepared, like, for, you know, dealing with things like this?
Well, and I think that a lot goes into that kind of individual preparation for each person, right? And it's gonna look different for everybody, but I think that there's two basic things that go on. People make their decisions based on their experience, and the information that they have at hand. And one of the things sometimes that doesn't get stressed to become a part of that experience and the information that we have is actually trusting our intuition. That it may not be as scientifically proven as so many other things might be just yet, but I think, you know, that may come down the line in terms of scientific research for the future about how we might just be able to learn to trust our feelings in some way. Maybe we don't have specific information, but a lot of times I think people do have some kind of intuition about whether what they're doing is really going to benefit them or not, or is really going to serve them, or and then listening to that, learning to discern, you know, from the inner voice, whether you should have your guard up about somebody, or whether you can let them in.
I believe in a lot of cases that women tend to be like more like, you know, I guess refined in those type of areas. Like they say women's intuition, and that may be like a cliche.
But
like,
maybe that gender stereotype has to go, because I think also men can be just as informed with their intuition as women can. It just has not been legitimated by society.
So being a good judge of character is what it boils down to, in your words, or
I don't know if it's just a good judge of character. It's also kind of a feeling on the inside. So that's what I was talking about, like experience and information that we have, like external information and experience that tells us, you know, is this the kind of person that I feel is a good person for me to associate with in terms of what we might judge on their outer characteristics, right? But that might just mean we're going to stereotype people because maybe they do this, or by their actions, their behaviors, or their appearance, you know, and it's easy to say, or it's easy to look at that and say, well, then if you're only going to judge by outward appearances, you might make a lot of mistakes in terms of who is a good person for you to hang out with and who's not, right? But when you couple that with learning how to trust your intuition and the kind of information that you can get from your intuition, then maybe it is a little bit more reliable.